So this is Destination Bradford. There's myself and there's Adam Hughes, who turns off his camera to preserve his battery, most likely. And yeah, we'd probably give it maybe a minute or so for other people to join, and then we're going to crack on. I would just like to say a very special welcome and thank you to our fantastic actors who will be doing some of the readings today. So we've got Reece, Sarah, and Amy and Greg. So they are here. You will see them popping up on your screens. And yeah, you'll hear some bits and pieces shortly. The whole event probably shouldn't take longer than an hour and a half. The monologues should take about an hour. Feel free to turn your camera off whilst the monologues are going. That's what actors are going to do. We're just going to turn our cameras off so everyone can just focus on the person speaking. And I think just kind of in a way of introduction, I would just say maybe that it is Destination Bradford sharing. It's an R&D process that we've done in a very kind of speedy way. So this may be super rough, but I've got a feeling you guys won't mind that because you're great. So there's that. As it's 5:04, Adam, do we want to do a little bit of an introduction before we crack on properly? And by the way, this is recorded. I hope you don't mind. This is for posterity. We're creating history here, guys.
Yeah, just to say thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. Margot, feel free to just put in, but Margot and I, essentially about this time last year started this project. It's been generously funded by Bradford Producing Hub, and we saw it as an opportunity. They were looking to make new work within the city of Bradford, and we were really keen to amplify the Eastern European voices of the city, because anyone who lives in Bradford or is from Bradford will know there's a huge community there. And drawing on our own heritage and background, we really wanted to focus on the Polish and Ukrainian communities as well. And this project, initially it was going to be in person, and then it was going to be site specific, and then obviously I don't need to bore everybody about the numerous lockdowns and restrictions, and it's got to the point now where we've moved it all online because we had no choice really, but we still want it to be a great event. So just a big thank you to absolutely everybody, everybody at the Ukrainian club and all the different Ukrainian Polish groups who work with, and the individuals in Bradford who've been really generous with their time and support. We really do appreciate it because we know it has been a bit of a labour of love, but we've been really grateful for the support we've received. So yeah, thank you so much. I just really hope you enjoy today. Is that okay, Margot? Anything else? Are you on mute? Do I have to keep talking?
Yeah, no, I know. Sorry, this is just going with the spirit of this as being an R&D scratch. So we've got a system here with Mikey, who's here in the studio. He's going to be helping with the Q&A after. But yes, I think we've got it all. So I think without... Yes, is someone saying something? Somebody saying...
Yes,
Arisia, I'm going to mute you because this other device keeps on switching itself on. So maybe quit that one, the other one where you don't have the camera on. It may be your phone or something like that, or an iPad. It's very strange. Yeah. Arisia, you okay? If you want, just 1 second, people. Arisia, can you unmute yourself? Can I just quickly check?
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. I'm gonna reject your other device so it's not in the call, and that way when you unmute yourself, you should be able to. Okay. Unmute. Can you say something, Arisia?
Yep. Yeah, I think the unwanted one's gone now, and I can hear a lot clearer.
Great success. All right, people. So yeah, like I said, please do mute yourselves and enjoy. And Adam, I think you're going to introduce the first monologue, and then yeah, take it away.
Yeah, so this first monologue is called Who Do I Support? And a lot of people, particularly those of Ukrainian heritage, probably had very split loyalties recently during the Euros. And I spoke to a few people about this, and it kind of inspired me to write something about somebody who's kind of found themselves in the middle of that and had their loyalties divided. So yeah, that's kind of what inspired this piece. So it's called Who Do I Support? And it's been performed by the brilliant Reece Raymond. So Reece, whenever you are ready, thank you.
Who do I support? That should be an easy question. Who do I support? Do you have any suggestions? Who do I support? I didn't think they'd make it past the group. Who do I support? Maybe it's time for me to recoup. Who do I support? Well, the obvious answer, England. Who do I support? I've always been a fan. Who do I support? A part of me has been ingrained. Who do I support? To cheer for a country known as Ukraine. Who do I support? You see, my grandparents are from there. Who do I support? Because it's for them that they think I should cheer. Who do I support? And normally I would when I'm at home. Who do I support? You know, when I'm with my family, all alone. Who do I support? Because then my mates at school, who do I support? They all think England rule. Who do I support? And this year they're the faves. Who do I support? And they've been sending all the big teams to an early grave. Who do I support? And then there was that match against Sweden. Who do I support? Because both teams looked pretty even. Who do I support? And I thought it was going to last forever. Who do I support? Because Ukraine just kept getting better and better. Who do I support? And that goal by Dovbyk at the end. Who do I support? It was like a strike that none of their defense could bend. Who do I support? And even though my family was jumping for joy, who do I support? Because inside, I just felt like a scared little boy. Who do I support? Because now both the countries I loved were playing for national pride. And who do I support? That at that moment, I knew that I'd have to actually pick a side. Who do I support? Okay, so I should probably just write a list. Who do I support? And write down all the things that make me English. Who do I support? And then all the things that make me Ukraine. Who do I support? But as you can imagine, this became quite a pain. Who do I support? Because each thing I found that makes me English. Who do I support? I found a bigger thing that makes me Ukrainian. Who do I support? See, I love Yorkshire puddings and watching Bradford play. Who do I support? But I love going to Ukrainian school at the club on Saturdays. Who do I support? I was born here, Bradford Infirmary. Who do I support? Because my family always told me about my grandparents' Ukrainian journey. Who do I support? At Easter, I love eating chocolate until I can't no more. Who do I support? Because I also love just painting eggs and making shanka. Who do I support? And I also love wearing vishvanka as well. Who do I support? And I also love wearing Reebok, as you can probably tell. Who do I support? At Christmas, my mates all celebrate on December the 25th. And who do I support? I've always just celebrated on January the 6th. Who do I support? And up until now, that's always just been okay. Who do I support? Because now Ukraine and England were about to play. Who do I support? My friends invite me around to theirs. Who do I support? Because I'm not sure that I dared. Who do I support? Because what if Ukraine do well and I start to cheer? Who do I support? Or what if England start to do well and I start to just jeer? Who do I support? And then there's my family watching at my grand's. Who do I support? And outside of Kyiv, they're Ukraine's biggest ever fans. Who do I support? See, my mates know I'm Ukrainian. I've never lied. Who do I support? But they all think I'll just celebrate and support England out of a matter of pride. Who do I support? And my family's the same. They never question my alliance. Who do I support? It's always support the Ukraines, never the Three Lions. Who do I support? Because the closer the day gets, I just get more nervous. Who do I support? And I don't want to do either country a disservice. Who do I support? Ukraine's never got this far before. Who do I support? It's England's turn. I want to hear them roar. Who do I support? Wonder if anyone else ever goes through this. Who do I support? Not knowing who they want to score and who they want to miss. Who do I support? Because inside, you want to see how far this England team can go. Who do I support? Because you can't not want to cheer for Andriy Shevchenko. Who do I support? The day finally arrived. It's time for the big game. And who do I support? I still can't give you a name. Who do I support? Yeah, I just considered supporting neither. Who do I support? It was too late. I caught football fever. Who do I support? And the more I kept thinking, just the more confused I'd get. Who do I support? And who would I support and cheer for when they get in the net? Who do I support? Okay, I just need to make up my mind. Who do I support? After all this questioning myself, what did I find? Who do I support? Was I more English or was I more Ukraine? Who do I support? And really, deep down inside, are they not just the same? So who do I support? So the evening came, an hour before the match. Who do I support? My grandma's downstairs, making borscht, a steaming hot batch. Who do I support? I came downstairs and I told them I was going to leave. Who do I support? You should have seen the looks on their face. Just utter grief. Who do I support? I told them I was going to watch the first half of the game with my friends. Who do I support? I was going to be wearing my England top. I wasn't going to pretend. Who do I support? But then I told them I was going to come back here and watch the second half here. Who do I support? Don't worry, I'll be back before the second whistle. No need to fear. Who do I support? I'm going to wear my Ukrainian stripes with pride. Who do I support? Because the time is now. I wasn't going to hide. Who do I support? See, I didn't need to just cheer on one team. Who do I support? I realize that not one team just needs to reign supreme. Who do I support? I'm going to be cheering on both sides. Who do I support? I'm going to be watching the game and both teams with equal pride. Who do I support? Because I'm Ukrainian and English. Who do I support? I'm going to be cheering on Zinchenko and Jack Grealish. And who do I support? It doesn't matter who wins tonight. Who do I support? I'm just going to be happy that both the teams I love put on a good fight. And who do I support? So it's glory to our heroes, glory to Ukraine. And who do I support? It's going to be me still cheering for the Three Lions and singing It's Coming Home Again. Who do I support? Because whoever wins, both these teams will have a special place in my heart. Who do I support? Oh, could you get out of the way, please? It's about to start.
Fantastic. Thank you, Reece. Amazing. Reece literally learnt that in a few days. Just fantastic. He came on really late and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much. So the second monologue is called Her Name Was Anna. And I'm kind of reluctant to give too much away about it, only because I think if I've said this name now, if anyone knows anything about famous Polish figures in Bradford, they'll know what I'm talking about. And for those who don't, I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, this was one that as soon as we started this project, everybody said you have to write one. of your monologues about this particular person, and the more we dug into their story, the more we uncovered, and it is genuinely fascinating, we think. So this is the second monologue. It's called Her Name Was Anna, and it's been read by Sarah Oldknow. So Sarah, whenever you're ready, thank you.
If you ever saw her, then you'd never forget her. And if you lived in Bradford in the 60s or 70s, then she was basically a local institution. Every time you went to the market, she'd be there, singing loudly with that big booming voice, wearing that woolly hat and that oversized jacket, whatever the weather. Badges pinned all over her, and that stick she carried. If she weren't using it for randomly banging on a dustbin lid, then she'd be using it to prod a loose cabbage away or make sure people gave her plenty of space. And she certainly did that. She could barely speak a word of English, and any noise she did make didn't sound remotely human. But that didn't stop her from spending most of her time down at John Street Market, helping out the traders. She'd always be there, doing a bit of work for a cup of tea or a slab of food. And to be honest, most of us were really quite scared of her. You'd have been afraid of her too if you'd ever met her. But there was never any harm in her. Some even said she had a gentle streak somewhere. And I suppose we took her for granted, really, because one day she was here and then the next. And the thing is, you noticed it straight away, that big booming presence just gone. And the worst thing was that this larger than life presence who you saw every single time you went down to market, we didn't know anything about her. I mean, before she literally just appeared in our city. I mean, who was she? How did she get here? And so when she died, we thought that her story had gone with her. She was buried here, a tombstone paid for by the market traders. Then, a few weeks after her funeral, one of the neighbours was walking past her house and there was a skip in front of it. And on top of that skip was an envelope. Being curious, he picked it up and opened it. And inside, there were all these black and white photos. Photos of her with her friends and what we thought were a family. Not only that, but there were documents too. An insight into this woman's life. An insight that we had no idea of anything about. So, what did we find out? Well, she was born on the 5th of May, 1909, in a village called Domostowa in southeast Poland. Her father was called Francis Czech and her mother Veronica, and they lived on a farm which they owned. Judging by the pictures, she was really happy there. Life wasn't easy and they had to work hard to earn a living, but it was all they knew. And then everything changed. 1939, Germany invaded Poland and Domostowa became part of the newly formed general government under strict German rule. This basically meant that thousands of innocent lives were murdered and the lucky ones went off to concentration camps. I say lucky ones. We don't know for sure, but judging from the information we've got, we think she was sent to Dachau concentration camp. There was even talk that she'd been experimented on. This was actually something that she confessed to a couple of people when she stayed in a UK hostel. Either way, she never actually admitted what they did to her, but then Who wants to relive that? Anyway, what did we know for sure? Well, inside that envelope was a file card, and it said that in early 1944, she was a farmhand working on a big estate in northwest Hamburg. From there, she moved to Lübeck, a port on the Baltic Sea, where she worked in a factory for the German war effort. Now, in May 1945, UK troops occupied Lübeck, and she became a DP, a displaced person. Now, like many Poles, she wanted to go home, but home no longer existed. It was now part of the newly formed Soviet Union. So she stayed in the DP camp until May 1948, and then we don't exactly know why or what happened, but she seems to have changed her mind, and she changed her desired destination from Poland to Bradford. And that's the biggest mystery of all, really. Why Bradford? Maybe she had family here. Perhaps she thought she could get work in the textile industry. Who knows? The main thing is that she made her home here for the next 40 years. And I don't think Bradford was ready. She made a mark straight away, working at Morton Banks Hospital in Riddlesden. When I say work, it was typical odd jobs and helping out where she could. Small emphasis on the helping out. At first, people couldn't work out if she was a man or a woman. And I guess that was down to her stature and the way she dressed and that deep voice. But matron called her Amelia, so everyone assumed that she were a lass. She stayed at Morton Banks and eventually transferred over to Joseph Dawson's cashmere works. Now, from what we can make out, here she was a bit of a mother hen figure, which is difficult to imagine, I know. She'd look after the new girls, take them under her wing, and if anyone did out to upset her, well, that was before she had a cane. She also used to do a little bit for the local community, unconventionally, true to form. Back in the 1960s, the highlight of a kid's week was going to the pictures, and our local one was the Marlborough Cinema. Now, if the film was a category A and you were under 16, it meant you had to be accompanied by an adult. So all the kids would hang around the local cinema and try and get passing adults to go in with them. And guess who never let them down? Yep, you've guessed it. For a bit of popcorn and the price of a ticket, she'd go in with you. Although once in there, she'd pretend she didn't know you. She'd sit in a seat and you'd hear shouts of Scaramouche while she was left in peace so she could watch that classic Western. She ended up living all over Bradford. I say living. Existing is more appropriate. There were rumours that she slept under the market stalls and on a bench in Little Autumn Park. There was even a story that a woman who bought a back-to-back house found her regularly sleeping in the outside toilet. She'd take a cup of tea out to her in the morning and give her some breakfast if she was hungry. But it was the market she was best known for. After a job at Joseph Dawson's, this is where she spent the rest of her working life. With that stick with the baby's dummies all over it. And that jacket with the badges all over it. Badges she'd accumulated over the years. Basically, if you had a badge that she wanted, it'd soon be hers, no matter how old you were. She used to help herself to food off the market stalls, and traders would be too scared to say anything to her. She'd permanently have her fingers in her mouth, whistling away. When she wasn't doing that, she'd be singing in that thunderous contralto voice, and the pigeons across West Yorkshire would be flying off the rooftops. Oh, you certainly knew when she was around. And for the next few years, this is how it was, ruling the market, with a cuppa in her hand and a picture of the Queen in her pocket. She loved the royal family. she was full of surprises, you know. And then one day it happened, 5th of December, 1985. One of the market traders who always used to get a breakfast arrived as usual and she didn't turn up. He went round to her house on Chain Street and didn't get a response. Eventually the police broke in and found her laid down with a broken femur. We took her to hospital, but it was too late by that point. Funniest thing is though, she always used to carry a bag around with her, and rumour had it was full of money. Now, we knew that just couldn't be possible because of who she was and how she lived. But when the coroner's office went round to her house and found that bag, guess what they found in it? Yep, £8,000 worth of money, which today is £27,000. Unbelievable. And that's it. I know it's not much, but it's better than no. And at least now we can share something. Share the stories about this larger than life figure. This legend who came from Poland and eventually became part of Bradford folklore. And who we're talking about? Anila Torba, of course. Although you probably know her as Polish Anna.
Thank you, Sarah. Fantastic. Yeah, so Polish Anna, a lot of you probably guessed before that, but yeah, just an incredible figure and amazing that people are still talking about her all these years later. So yeah, thank you, Sarah. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you. And so the third, thank you, Margot. Yeah, there's still, was that last year?
Yeah, I think, let me just get into Zoom. This is like, I've never done Zoom before, you'd think, but I don't know if people can see my my camera. Oh, you can. Oh, fantastic, cool. So this is just an article that we kind of found and found out about Polish Anna from it. You can probably just zoom in on some of these photos, but it kind of portrays the kind of colourful life that she had, and it gives you an idea what she looked like. But yeah, that's beautiful, beautiful story.
Yeah, it really is. The next monologue is called The Last Dance, and when we were speaking to a lot of people in Bradford, we realised how big of a role dance played in both the Ukrainian and Polish communities, how there were dance clubs for each of them, and how people competed around the world with a lot of these organisations. So we thought we wanted to write a story about that. And we also wanted to combine it with a couple of stories about people who weren't really sure where they stood in relation to the heritage, and actually what dance brought out within them, and actually what that represented to them and this culture they were a part of. So we've kind of created a fictitious story, but inspired by real people and like semi-real events. So yeah, that is The Last Dance, and it is being read by Amy Zolden. So Amy, whenever you're ready, thank you very much.
It were my dad that made me do it. Leonid, he was Ukrainian, came over just after the war. He originally arrived in Pocklington, East Yorkshire, but he found a job at a wool factory in Saltaire. And it is here that he met me mum, Irene. With a name like that, she was obviously as English as fish and chips. But my dad, he was a very proud man. And don't get me wrong, he liked England, did his best to fit in, but he was a proud Ukrainian. And that meant I had to be too. So that meant I had to go to all the events at the club, go to Saturday school, church on Sunday. But one of the biggest things for him was the dancing. See, when my friends were all out playing together or at brownies or whatever, he'd make me go down to the Ukrainian club and learn the hopak. And it were bloody hard work. You ever done any Cossack dancing before? Oh, the amount of running around you have to do, knees and legs kicking along the floor. God, it were knackering. And even though there were a group of us that went all the same age, I never really felt part of it. The other kids, they all felt more Ukrainian than I did. Both of their parents were from there, and well, they'd been so brought up in the culture that they didn't even seem English. No, I was a proper outsider. Didn't belong at all. Not that my dad cared. Every single week we'd go and he'd stay and watch, as if just to make sure I stayed, as if knowing that if he wasn't there, I'd leave as soon as I could, and he'd be right and all. Because you see, it wasn't just the fact that I felt like I didn't belong. It was the dancing itself. I just weren't very good at it. And I didn't mind. Like, in fact, I kind of played up to it. I thought that if I carried on being crap, my dad would notice and he'd let me give up. But he never did. For him, tradition was everything. Like, even though we were here living in England, he didn't care. At home, we only spoke Ukrainian, observed the Ukrainian holidays, and every night we'd eat Ukrainian food. Do you know how disgusting stuffed cabbage is? And if ever there was a big event, he'd make me wear this traditional Ukrainian outfit. Honestly, you should have seen it. It took forever to tie up, and then once you were in it, you could hardly breathe. And when I was younger, I put up with it all, probably because I didn't know any better. But now I was getting older. I was becoming a teenager, and I wanted to do my own thing, find myself. And this was all getting a bit too much. It were them dance classes, though. Every Tuesday and Thursday, yeah, twice a week. And sometimes we'd even have a class and a show on Sundays. Oh, I told Mum that I wanted to quit, but she said no. It was something my father wanted me to do, and it was making him proud. Proud. Guess it don't matter how I feel then. As time went on, the more disillusioned I became. You know, when you get an idea stuck in your head and you just can't get rid of it? Well, I'd still be doing everything that he asked, and I was still following all the traditions. But really, I was starting to care less and less each day, to the point where I didn't really care at all. And then it arrived. The 1972 International Ukrainian Dance Festival in Canada. Normally this would never affect us because it was always so far away and we could never afford to go. But this year, the club held a fundraiser, which meant they'd managed to raise the money. And that meant me and all the team could go, and our parents. For Dad, this was a dream come true. But me, this was my worst nightmare. We got on a plane and we arrived in Canada. And talk about a beautiful place. Mountains that stretched on for miles, and gleaming rivers and wildlife. And the people there are so friendly too. Like, it was somewhere that I could see myself living. It was the sort of place where I'd love to emigrate to. Dad just moaned about the weather. He said it was too cold and too bright all at the same time. He were never happy. We arrived 3 days before the competition, and I thought we might have some time to relax, go exploring. Not a chance. We were made to practice straight away. The other girls were desperate to do the Bradford Ukrainians proud on the world stage. I just wanted to go skiing. Of course, he was there, in the hall, the only parent watching as we practiced and practiced. I hated it. I couldn't concentrate. Even when we're all these thousands of miles away, he's still there, watching me, making sure I'm being the perfect daughter. It was painful. And the hotel we were staying in, of course, it was run by Ukrainians. There's a huge diaspora out here, so everyone was speaking the language. And guess what was on the menu? I was hoping for bacon and waffles. Instead, we were eating derony. Couldn't believe it. It was like they were escaping this, that coming from this world, this culture was this huge weight forever weighing me down. It was the day before the competition though. We were practicing, but I couldn't get my kicks right. I kept mistiming them. And the teacher, she was losing her patience, and I could see that the others were as well, but I didn't care about them. What was really bothering me was him, sat there shaking his head, that look of constant disappointment. And it was then, in that moment, that was when I knew that I had finally had enough of it all. That night we got back to the hotel and he's telling me what I'm doing wrong, trying to give me some advice. And I just tell him to stop, that I'm done with this, that after tomorrow I'm going home and I'm living my own life the way I want to. None of this Ukraine bollocks. He tells me that I do not mean this. And I say, yeah, I do. That I am sick of being told how to do things and what traditions to follow. I tell him I'm not Ukrainian, but that I am English. And he needs to deal with that. You should have seen his face. I thought he'd be angry or shout at me, but he didn't. Instead, he looked hurt, disappointed. But I didn't care. I didn't care. It's what I wanted. I was sick of being forced into things that I didn't want to do. It had to stop eventually, and the time had come. He didn't speak to me all evening, though. We had dinner and I didn't say a word. Well, I wasn't going to speak Ukrainian anyway. And when we went to bed that night, he went to his room and I went to mine. And that was that. Nothing more to say. The day of the competition came. Ukrainian dance groups from all over the world gathered in this one place, each dressed up in these silly outfits, wearing these silly hats. There were thousands there, more people than I had ever seen before in my life. And all the other girls wanted to do is check out the other groups and see what the competition was. God, I just wanted it to be over with. He didn't even speak to me at breakfast. Didn't wish me good luck. Fine. If that's how he wants to be, I'm already over it. When we arrived at the arena, we got the running order, and of course we were near the end, second to last, which meant having to sit through all the other dancers, which I knew would take forever. And as I was stood backstage, I peeped round the curtain and I could see him there on the front row. Part of me thought he might not come after our argument, but of course he would. Probably wanted to see me make a mess of things, see firsthand what a letdown his daughter truly is. Eventually, after a lot of unnecessarily long dances, it was our turn. And when they called our names, our teacher wished us good luck, and all the girls turned and smiled at each other. And they even smiled at me this time. And suddenly I felt nervous. Not sure why. I mean, I couldn't care if we came first or last. And when I walked out on the stage, I thought, this is it. This is the last time I will ever have to do this. The last time I ever have to get out here and dance with this lot. We're going to be free. Then the lights went down. The music started. I saw him there, sat right ahead. He looked at me and I looked at him. And I don't know why, but staring out into that audience, hearing that music, knowing I was halfway around the world on a stage representing Bradford, something suddenly changed. Because I suddenly felt proud. I know, and this feeling, I'd never had it before. I didn't know what to do, but here I was, proud to actually be up here as part of this group in front of all these people. It was like being away from home, a stranger in a foreign land, made me instantly protective of where I came from. It made me want to represent that place. And it also made me realise how much I actually did belong in that world and how I was a part of something, even if I made out that I wasn't. As soon as the music started, we began dancing. And honestly, it was the best I have ever danced in my life. It was like I could feel the blood and spirit of Ukraine flowing through me. Like the heritage of my father and forefathers have given me was still alive because I was keeping it that way. And he looked at me and he just smiled because he knew that something was happening, that something had come alive within me. And it was then I realised why my dad felt the way that he did, why he wanted to keep all these traditions alive. Because doing this, it did make you feel proud, because I felt proud right now. Once the final performance was finished, they called us all back on stage. We finished 10th, which wasn't that bad really, I didn't think. And once it were over, he was waiting for me outside our dressing room. There were a few moments of silence. It was a little bit awkward, but I knew he'd see me on that stage. I knew he'd seen how much I enjoyed it. And he saw that something had changed. He eventually speaks, says it's a shame we didn't win, that it would be nice to bring something home. I said it's fine, because I am bringing something. He smiles at me, and I smile back. And in that moment, I knew who I was finally. And I was never going to take that for granted again.
Thank you. Just my intro music. Thank you, Amy. That was fantastic. I'm going to hand over to Margot now, who will introduce the final two monologues. Cheers, Margot.
Thanks, Adam. Thank you for all these monologues. So we go next, and as it happens, oh wait, I'll probably just do this. Yeah. So the next monologue is something that I wrote just based on some of the family memories. I have a family member who had lived in Bradford, but also some of the stories that I picked up during our research period. So we did have actors to read it, but they couldn't make it due to COVID and all sorts of different things. So I will read this piece, and it's called Aunt Wiesia. When I found out that I had an aunt living in the UK, I immediately wanted to call her. I don't know why exactly. It was just a strong feeling. I don't remember her at all. Her husband, maybe at a push. But Mum said they came to visit us once in Zabłudów, and that's in the northeastern Poland, if you need to know. So apparently Michał looked around our flat and said, "Oh, it's so small. We have a proper house in Bradford." Oh, cheers. Is the kind of thing only a relative from the West was able to get away with. Any other family member would be punished by having their name's day party invite revoked indefinitely, but not Michał. He gave me a real English pound coin for good luck, so if anything, his ratings were going up. Real Western money, which of course I couldn't spend on anything back home, but when I was on the coach to London to start my new adventure, the coin became a real lifeline at the petrol station in Germany. I exchanged it for access to the toilet, which I suppose was lucky. I got her number from my paternal granddad, Józek, who, by the way, was a total legend, like the nicest man you'll ever meet, kind, easygoing, and if grandma pissed him off, which she knew how to do exactly, he would go off galloping on his horse for a few days and then come back, an ocean of calm again. He was Michał's favorite cousin, his best friend. When Michał and I got married after the war, your granddad was the only one from your family who bothered to call. When Michał died, Józek still called me every Christmas. It meant a lot, especially that I didn't have anyone left in Poland. My life was in Bradford now. Aunt Wiesia adored both of them. They were almost an extension of one another. She often told me a story which gained almost a hagiographic status in her house. When the Second World War started, the Soviets raided villages in eastern Poland, drafting men into the labor camps. Anyone aged 14 or over with something in their pants, sorry, but I'm quoting an 80-year-old lady here, was given half an hour to pack and get ready to leave, well, into deep Russia, Siberia. One time, the Soviets turned up in Zabłudów. Suddenly, all the men were to be taken away. Men, I mean, Michał was only 15. He was still a child and his mother's only son. Poor thing, he was in floods of tears, packing for the journey into the unknown. I mean, stuff like that always gets me. Unimaginable parallel world our grandparents grew up in. It's mental. I feel my throat tightening up in floods of emotion. I'm all strapped in and ready for the next installment. The men were assembled on the main road. Women and children were told to step back, away from their husbands and sons. They would get pushed away violently by the Soviet soldiers if they dared to get close. So apparently, the Soviet officer who came to get Michał said, "Take some warm clothes, you'll need them for where you're going." I mean, what a surreal thing to consider in the middle of August. How long was the impending journey, and where to? So my granddad Józek, then a 12-year-old kid, was minding the geese in a nearby field, one of his favorite chores, when he heard someone shouting at the top of their lungs, "The Soviets are taking our boys!" And Józek immediately got up and almost counterintuitively bolted it towards the village. And once he got there, he saw the line of men standing on the dusty road, a strange human zoo assembled for whose delight? He saw the familiar faces of neighbors, friends of his late father, older peers he went to school with, their dads, people he recognized vaguely from the church or the Sunday market, all lined up like voiceless cattle. And Józek, like many others, had already rehearsed this scenario, hoping it will never happen. He knew he was only too young to be taken away, but Michał had just turned 15. Józek's eyes darted around, searching for his favorite cousin in the crowd. And there he was. Michał's face looked changed by fear. And finally, the officer ordered the departure, and the outburst of lamentations had swept across the crowd of onlookers, mothers, wives, sisters, unable to produce any reassuring words, just long and desperate howls at best. Clunky and out of sync at first, the men were gradually finding their rhythm. Fixing their gaze on the endless horizon, they moved further and further east, away from the loved ones, passing them like roadside trees. Józek waited for the Soviet soldier to look away before taking a forward leap. This was his only chance to say goodbye to Michał and hand him a white bundle he brought from home. And so, my legendary granddad here pushed through the people, causing the Soviet guard to lose his shit in rage. He reached Michał and handed him a thick woolen jumper knitted by his mum for his birthday. "Here, Michał, you'll need it for where you're going." "I may be old, but my head is still on top form," says Aunt Wiesia with a cheeky smile. She told me the story many times, over the phone when I first rang her, and then when I came to visit her in Bradford. And I have imagined this story hundreds of times, including as a film version, featuring Macaulay Culkin playing my granddad as a young boy, and Johnny Depp from What's Eating Gilbert Grape as Michał. And one time during one of my visits, I asked, "Auntie, wouldn't you want to go back to Poland to see my granddad?" "What do you mean?" she replied, slightly puzzled. "Well, you know, just go to Zabłudów and see granddad face to face. Catch up, talk about the old days, about Michał." "No way! Are you joking?" I have to say, I did not anticipate such an adamant rejection. I could never go back to Poland. I can't stand their food. It's too greasy, and I don't want people to think I'm making fuss. And what followed is a relentless litany of much-hated dishes which Wiesia clearly had spent a fair bit of time compiling over the years. Pierogi, overrated. Pickled gherkins, increase her stomach acids. Gołąbki, she can't stand pork. Chłodnik, cold soup, are you mad? And the worst of all, she says, is the cream. Why do they have to add cream to every soup? Oh, no, thank you. I prefer to stick to my baked beans and sausage rolls. You can get them quite cheap from Morrison's, actually. Oh, that reminds me. Penguins are on special offer. Suri from next door told me. Okay, chop chop, get your coat, we're going shopping. I tried to continue the subject on the number 67 bus towards Morrison's in Longland, the most local to her. We could go to Poland together, Auntie. Stock up on your favorite things before we go and cook for ourselves. Nobody would need to get involved. I'm not too much of a cook, to be honest, she confessed. Grab the trolley, love, will you? And off she goes right into the maze of aisles like a sniffer dog for special bargains. When the Germans took me to work in a factory, I was still very young and never got time to learn how to cook. And during those times, there was hardly any food to go around anyway. We had to stash every piece of bread and sometimes use it to exchange for other things. Ooh, 2 for 1 canned pineapple slices. Great. You never told me about Germany. What did you do there? I asked from behind a large metal trolley which was filling up quickly. What did I do? Just the same as everyone else. We were working in a factory producing parachute parts and some other things like that. There were a couple of us from Poland and we tended to stick together. Some girls came from Hungary, Ukraine. Oh, half-price cream. Let's get out of this section. What did I do? We lived at the top of an entresol inside of a factory, a couple of hundred women living under one metal roof, which got super hot at night and freezing cold during winter months. It wasn't too bad though. We were able to earn a little bit of money, which I spent on cigarettes. They were the best currency for bribing the guards to get an extra piece of bread. Oh, cheese crackers, this way. Where were your parents? Were you there alone? My parents stayed behind. Not sure what exactly happened to them. It was hard to keep in touch those days. But once the war was over, I found out through the Red Cross that they died on the way to Siberia. Their house got repossessed, I think. So there wasn't really much for me to go back to. Oh, grab them penguins, love. That's it. They're lovely with a lovely cup of tea, you know. And many of us have had their relatives taken away to gulags. Some have survived the harsh conditions and went back home, but some migrated to England to work in the mills. Oh, by the way, did you know the Morrison's main offices are based in Bradford? They're ever so good. Suri always gets her chickpea stuff in the Indian section, and I always buy sugar and sometimes even sugar cubes from the Polish section. The most recent is the deli counter. I like going there looking at fish and hams there, but they're a bit impractical though, because they can't keep for long. Spam keeps for very long. It's in the next aisle. Back at the aunt's home, we started unpacking the shopping. It went on for so long that we almost ran out of space to store the endless cans and packets. In the evening, we sat in the lounge with a pot of tea for two. With her glasses on, Auntie was reading The Sun, her favorite newspaper, because it's cheap and it doesn't take long to read it from cover to cover, she would say. She seemed completely oblivious to page 3. Scattered around the room were the piles of archival issues of The Sun, some dated back to 1987. I used to have more, but Michał chucked them away. Or would you like to read some of his poetry? He was very talented. Very good with words. He even wrote in English. Go upstairs and in my bedroom there's a wardrobe and inside a blue box, like a hat box with his notebooks. Why don't you bring them down and we'll have a little read? There are mountains of newspapers all around her bed. and multi-packs of penguins stacked high up on her bedside table. I don't think I realized that she was so much of a sweet tooth. I opened the ornamented door of the old wardrobe and looked for the blue box. Inside, I saw a scarce collection of vintage coats and dresses and an impressive array of tins of soups, beans, hams, jars of pickles, jams, Lambert and Butler cigarettes, packets of sugar, flour. I mean, there's a whole damn Morrison's in here. And finally, I locate the blue box and I open it, hoping to find Michal's notebooks, but instead, I find small tins of mackerel. Auntie, there are no notebooks in here. Are you sure you have them? Oh, never mind. Come down here and I'll recite you one of his poems. I like the one about little fish that could make wishes come true best. I may be old, but my head is still on top form. So there's that bit. And the next one is called Kamil, and it is about a different Polish person that I have met. I've met many Kamils or various versions of Kamils, and we're going to start off by Greg. Greg is going to kick us off.
Zaraz, moment, mówię tutaj już, mówię zaraz, antenę muszę podłączyć. Oh, okay, I think it's working now. So the thing is, I'm gonna speak to you in Polish, okay? But you're gonna hear that as in English. You're gonna hear me in English, okay? It's whole, you know, because of this 5G mind control technology. What? You think I'm lying to you about 5G? Mate. We'll see who's laughing in the end. You vaccinated? All right, we'll see. No, I'm not saying anything. I'm not saying it's good or bad. You do what you want. You know, me, I still haven't decided, okay? My girlfriend and I still thinking about it. It's just, you know, I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. You understand? I want to wear or not to wear a mask. You know, it's up to me, preferably not to wear a mask. But at work it's a bit harder. You know, you British, you have all these strict health and safety rules, don't you? No. It's good to have them. Yeah. But, you know, few of us, you know, like, you know, working in a warehouse, you know, like we like to run things in our ways, you know, homegrown ways, kind of, you know. All right, yeah. Basically, all the health and safety tests are in English, but if you don't speak the bastard, you need a helping hand from your friendly supervisor who can push you over the line because he knows you are good and you make his life easier. So you do the test, he signs your papers, next day you back on the forklift, carrying on doing an honest job. What's the harm in that? Everyone's happy. See you at the pub after. Yeah, I'd say we're a hard-working lot. Listen, my dad laid pavement back home until the day he retired. It didn't matter that he wasn't a director of a big company. What mattered was that he was solid. He did what he had to do, and he did it well. There's nothing to be ashamed of, but you know, me, to be honest, I like to go to the next level. You know, nothing really fancy. Just want to earn enough to build a house, start a family, have a comfortable life. Maybe get a nice Porsche Panamera, you know, to cruise around. 7 years in Bradford. I'm on my way up, man. It's a nice town you have here. But you see people around who had given up on their aspirations, on life, on work. You can see them all around Oster Square, doing spies and whatnot. They've got nothing better to do. They have nowhere to be, nowhere else to be. It's like my hometown Łódź in the 90s. I mean, it's the council needs to do something with it. Help these people. It's demoralizing. And what happened to your famous mills? They are empty shells now. Nobody's working there. Just take a walk around Manningham. You'll see huge buildings, empty, staring at you with blank windows, like they're shocked to see a human. But you know what? The Indian crew who used to work there, they got straight on with the case, started opening up the businesses. Hell, you know, the Polish shop Dobre Polskie on Grattan Road, it's run by a Pakistani dude. Another guy I know runs a textile factory making uniforms for the Queen's Guards. And he employs mostly Polish people. You got to respect them. I mean, you know, respect. Sorry, I need a drink. And me, I've done a few jobs in my time. I picked strawberries, cleaned hospitals, washed dishes, put icing on cakes in the confectionery joint. I did my time on the building site. You name it, I've done it all. Maybe except from selling Avon. But my girlfriend, Veronica, she's really good. She's mad into this whole beauty business, you know. She's all the time on Facebook, Insta, following the trends, doing online courses on how to mount them little eyebrows to eyelids, stuff like that. And she wants to open her own salon one day. And why not? She's good. I mean, if you had seen the things she does with her face, I tell you, man, eyeliner, lip floss, the lot, not a wrinkle on her face. Every single time we go out, it's like, boom, all the eyes are on her. Guys can't help but salivate, you know, uncontrollably. It's pathetic animals, you know. We sometimes hung out in the Polish club as well, on the weekend especially. You know, the one in Edmund Street, not far from the Polish church. Yes, exactly, that one, yeah. But apparently the club ain't as it used to be. All the granddads and grannies say so. Apparently it used to be more civilized, more modest. I mean, yeah, it's true, time have changed, but people have always needed to decompress, chill out after a long day at work, have a drink, have a laugh, have a dance, show some appreciation for the beautiful ladies, you know. It ain't no different now, only drinks got much more expensive, I'm afraid. And anyway, no, I'm not saying that the war was for nothing or anything like that. Those granddads will always be our heroes. They fought in the RAF, and you guys know for well, you would have been in a deep shit if it wasn't for them. Yeah, I come from a patriotic home. The love for your country is something you carry in your heart, wherever you live. End of.
Yeah,
It's not always easy these days. Yeah.
No, it's not easy. I have to agree. It's not easy. But you know, take our neighbors, yeah. So she's Ukrainian and he's English, born and bred Bradford lad, yeah. They're good friends. We get on well, and there's no animosity between us because you know it used to be a bit tense between Ukrainians and Poles. But how's your famous quote you've got there? Don't mention the war, yeah? No problem. I don't mention it to Oksana, and I keep it current with Gary. We're good. Gary is a great lad. I mean, he is very patient with my English, and he laughs at my jokes. And I, in return, introduce him to Warka Strong, delicious beer. None of that wife-beater crap he used to drink. Oksana and Gary have a little boy, yeah? His name is Artem John. I know. Poor kid. I mean, you can imagine what school is like for him. It's tragic. He gets picked on all of the time. And once he came home bruised, and Oksana had to go to school and have a word with the teachers. And then the next day, Gary went just to make sure they got the point. And the little prick who hit the little son got punished. So I talked to Gary afterwards because he turned up on my doorstep with 2 cans of vodka. I don't know, man, he said. So I pulled out 2 deck chairs from the shed and we cracked the tinnies open, and soon I got a glimpse into Gary's mental state. I mean, the man was a complete emotional wreck. he said he loved Oksana very much, but he was questioning AJ's education in the Ukrainian school. Sorry, did I say AJ? I meant Artem John, because Oksana doesn't like his name to be abbreviated. Yeah. Gary said that she's really keen that the boy grows up to be proud of his Ukrainian and British roots, which, considering we've got British culture here on tap, it was important that Artem John got proper time learning about the Ukrainian traditions and history. The trouble is, Kamil, that's Gary talking, that the Saturday school is on at the same time as the football academy where all his classmates go. So he's missing out, and then he gets picked on. Like, I'm not saying he shouldn't learn Ukrainian language or culture or anything like that, but now Oksana is talking about signing him up for accordion classes as well. I mean, can you imagine that? He'll have no time to bond with other kids. It will be a social suicide to him. Like, I just want him to fit in, not have this historical obligation rammed down his throat. I don't want him to resent us when he's older. Look, we always light a candle for the 4th Saturday of November for Holodomor, and then every year I take him to Bradford FC Stadium to commemorate the Valley Parade fire. Both of these things are part of AJ's heritage, but I want him to ask questions. Maybe when he's older he will, but it has to be his choice. He can make his own life. And I'm like, you what? Gary, you leaving it up to a 7-year-old kid to take interest in his heritage? No, my friend. This, I think, is where you make a gross mistake. You, Gary, as a parent, as a father, you have the responsibility to teach your child the values and patriotism. That's your duty. Okay, accordion is a bit lame and it's time-consuming, but if this is what helps AJ to connect with Oksana's family in Ukraine, then you have to endorse it. End of. And as for football, listen, man, I mean, I'm sorry about all the people who died in the fire, niech im ziemia lekko będzie, but you cannot compare a tragic health and safety incident to Stalin letting millions of people starve to death because of a premeditated agricultural experiment. Mate, we had communism in Poland because of Stalin. People were imprisoned for criticizing the Soviets. You couldn't even be openly Catholic up until 89. My parents told me all about it. Our history has been rewritten. We cannot allow this to happen again. And at this point, I'm fully standing up and my heart is racing. So I had to take another sip of vodka to calm me down, but it was just adding fuel to the fire. I have no children of my own yet, but I can see what's going on. I have my eyes and I can see that this generation spends their entire lives glued to their mobiles. So how are they going to learn anything about the world? From TikTok? From one stupid idiot doing stupid dance and then the whole thing going viral? The world is a war zone, Gary, and we need to prepare our young troops to resist and fight. AJ is the future, and there are already many traps set for our innocence. We have a big responsibility on our shoulders, Gary. We are the Gareth Southgates for our boys. We have to prepare them to face the invisible enemy of the new era. We finished the beers in silence and then mumbled some good nights. I put the chairs back in the shed, but I don't bother with the empty cans. And then I go back to the house, I go to the bedroom and Veronika is there. And I tell her to put her phone down because we are taking it to the next level. Jump in. Okay, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Yeah, good. I hope so. All right, so you're probably depleted of a will to live after hour or so being talked at, so I hope you're okay. If you need to stretch out, please do. We're going to have a very quick Q&A now, and just a quick round of applause to our fantastic actors. And also a shout out to the ladies from the Ukrainian Club and everybody that we spoke to in preparation for this project. So now Mike is going to take over. You can see him here in the middle. And this is the Talkaoke-style Q&A, which normally is a Q&A, but today it's just a bit different. So this is an opportunity for us just to have a conversation, digest what the stories were. As it is a sharing, we would love to hear your thoughts. We really would like to hear anything that sprang to mind after hearing these.
Thank you, Margot. Let me just give you a gratuitous extra applause. So some great pieces there. I just would say, we've asked you to turn your cameras off. Now I'm gonna just ask you to do the opposite, which is turn your cameras back on so we can see you. Now's the time just to sort of like unpack some of these. I mean, there's a lot there, and there's some amazing performances and some great writing as well. Has anyone got a thought, a comment, an observation, a suggestion, a correction, or anything at all to kick us off with? I see a hand up, but I haven't got my glass. I have got my glasses on, but the wrong ones. So
I can't see.
It's over here. Who's this?
Cheska.
Cheska.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Cheska.
Hello. I really loved Margot's monologue, the one she stuck, and I would love to see that in a supermarket. It's such an alternative theatre space. I've never known theatre to be in a supermarket, and I would love that, especially down these I don't know what they call them, like, I don't know, certain aisles for foreign food. I'd love to see it. And I really loved Greg's as well. I wish he did speak in Polish a little bit more, even though I would have only been able to make out certain words. I'm half Polish, but I wouldn't have been able to translate. But
did the 5D translation come in a little bit too fast? Did we need to hear a little bit more kind of Polish, even if a lot of the audience can't hear it? Maybe they need a smattering. Maybe we need a bit more of a smattering of Polish. But I know that wasn't your main question. Your main question is about could the supermarket be a theatre space?
Yes.
Yes, you're saying.
Yes, definitely. I'd love to do it in Morrison's, in any aisle, really. Maybe even just desecrate the deli counter and just. But yeah, I definitely think so. I think one of the things that I'm personally interested in exploring is the kind of non-typical theatre spaces, particularly. Yeah. I'm thinking about it during COVID, where theatres got closed down, but then some spaces remained open. There's, people took their performances outdoors, and definitely that's kind of something that I'd be very interested in. That and the construction side, and people who know what I'm talking about, they know what I'm talking about. But yeah.
Okay, so lots of other theatres. Go on, Naressa, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, even if if it was spoke by Greg more in Polish, you could obviously have English subtitles and people could choose to accept them or not accept them. So it's there if they want it. I think that'd be quite nice.
I mean, obviously we're here between languages, and there is this kind of, it's always an artistic decision in a way to decide how to actually play with the difference of languages. And I think obviously it comes up a lot in your work. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
I mean, I think the thing about like throwing in Polish phrases, I think when I first started writing, I was more interested in that. Now I became slightly less interested in that, and I think what I'm quite curious in exploring is reaching the middle class audiences, and who may be. I mean, I'm making a massive assumption here that people are not interested in quirky Polish words or quirky Polish things. So I'm doing something deliberate there, but by keeping the Polish back. But I mean, that's not to say that that's not going to develop. I mean, because Adam, you had some Polish phrases here and there across your pieces as well. I mean, sorry, Polish, Ukrainian rather.
Yeah.
Do you think you're gonna get some more Ukrainian bits and pieces in
Well,
your?
it's a fine balance, isn't it? Because Cheska, I was going to ask you, did a play about you? Was it based on your granddad?
Yeah, based on semi-autobiographical, based on me and my granddad, who's Polish.
Did you do something similar? Was that like? Did you see like were English audiences receptive, or was it?
I didn't have loads of Polish in, but I had bits of Polish in that they didn't understand at the beginning, and it was quite interesting because the Polish audience that were in the show would laugh, and the English audience had no idea.
Right.
But what I did is I made sure I cleared up that joke by the end, and then it was like a double laugh because the English audience then got the joke, but then also got why the Polish people were laughing, and really little things like, especially because we played in so many community venues as well as theatres, just putting in like nastrovie, like cheers, just because I wanted people to be able at the bar, if somebody's Polish and somebody's English and they had no language to discuss, they could at least say nastrovie and like open a conversation.
Is that the most important Polish word, would you say, nastrovie?
Of course.
Okay.
I mean, we've got loads of Polish people on this call. Maybe they can tell us what the main Polish phrase is.
And also, let's get the Ukrainian side as well. But I noticed that Kane's got his hand up, and Greg, I don't know if that was just a kind of a flinch, or were you actually put your hand up there? But you were putting your hand up. But let me come to Kane first, because he had his hand up first, and I'm going to come to you, Greg.
Yeah, I guess we're sort of quite interested in what other stories and narratives and sort of themes you picked up through the kind of research leading up to this and through the conversations you've had.
Okay, well, that goes to both, I guess, Adam and Margot. Adam, do you want to go first this time?
Yeah, I think identity was a massive one, especially for second and third generations, feeling between two different cultures and actually what that meant. I think a sense of displacement, particularly for the first generation. When we spoke, certainly the people I was lucky enough to speak to, there was a sense of coming to Bradford and making it their home, and but also living with the horrors of the past. Like Margot touched on it with her monologue about what people and with the Polish Anna one as well, what a lot of people went through and how they carried that with them. I found that really interesting. I don't know if you found the same, Margot.
I mean, yeah, I think in terms of themes, I think what I have been really personally interested in is how to kind of represent people in my work who aren't typically represented. And by that, and one of the people that I wanted to kind of represent in one of my monologues is that kind of, the standard stereotypical Kamil, just the kind of Polish dude who doesn't get involved. He's got his own life, because these are the people that we met up north when we went up there, because we did a Talkaoke up in Bradford and then in Lancashire. And this is exactly, people don't get involved in Talkaoke or anything kind of happening on the street, but they're very happy to have a one-on-one conversation. They're happy to tell you about their life. They're very, very open. And I think that they are sometimes full of contradictions, which is something that I'm interested in, because these characters, they don't, is there anything beyond the stereotypical Polish builder? Can he be seen through other eyes than just, he's just a Polish builder, he speaks funny and he drinks beer. So that's what I'm interested in. So yeah, just wanted to bring that voice as well.
Okay, so I guess in a way it's not just one Polish or Ukrainian voice. There's a whole, there's as many characters as you would find in any country, and
I think as well, like what was interesting for me, and Margot, what you said about like contradictions and stuff. One person's, we could write a monologue. Say we've written a monologue and it's based on one person's experience. The same person moved over at the same time and as part of the same community could say that's not my experience at all. And I think you have to I found that you have to accept that. I think at the beginning it was a bit of a, like there is with any project like this, you really want to represent that whole community. And actually I think you've got to, what I've learned from this is that actually just because if one person experiences it and they feel something, the next person you speak to might feel the opposite. And I think it was actually being brave and just kind of embracing that.
You have to kind of, I guess you're sort of almost kind of Frankenstein-like gluing characters together from different elements of people's experience in the research. Let's go to Greg, because you had a point as well, didn't you, Greg?
Actually, I just wanted to say to Czeska that sometimes I do whisper Polish words to ladies' ears, and I do it for a small charge, obviously, but you can. And actually, I had this situation when one colleague from work, the girl, she really was kind of. I don't want to turn it on because it sounds really bad, but she really was interested in hearing these Polish swearing words, dirty words, and so we can arrange that.
Yeah. Okay, so
Nice.
we've got Nostrovia, but there are other words we can probably think of.
No, it's
obviously all the Polish dirty words.
obviously
I just had the Polish conversation.
It's a joke.
Yeah, that's as well. Maybe that also leads on to a question about humor and. There's a lot of humor in all of the pieces. And how does that come across? Is there a different humor between these different communities? Or how does humor actually feed into this, I suppose, is a question implied by that point from Greg.
I'm interested in what other people have to say about humor in these pieces, because I cannot be objective. Nor do I need to, but I think humor is absolutely crucial.
Yeah, it was just something that came up yesterday in a totally other Talkaoke, not about this. Was there a point from someone?
Yeah, Natasha's got her hand up. I think maybe it's because she's got the answer to what is the role of humor in Polish and Ukrainian writing. So Natasha, take it away.
Whoa, okay. I had my hand up before that question was posed, actually. But I guess I guess I can respond to humor, but I do want to just say
ask the question you wanted to ask. Don't be sidetracked. But
it wasn't, so I don't think I really have a question, but it something that really struck me in these stories and obviously then that I relate to it is pride and being proud, and that pressure from your parents and older generations of their pride being delivered down to you, and therefore having to like perform up to that, and that came across really strongly. But it in a lot of these stories I felt, but yeah, I don't know, I just I find it such a, I hate it. Like I quite hate it when someone's just like, oh, I'm so proud of you. Like, oh, it just makes me feel like, oh, I don't know. And I don't know. I just want to throw out pride there and see and I'm not, I don't have a split heritage, so it's not coming from that point of view for me. But definitely, one of my parent figures has a thing with pride, and it makes me hate it. I hate it. I'm like, oh no, I don't want to.
How does it fit in with the question of expectation? Because I think the monologue with the dancing is that there's this also with the pride is the expectation and that pressure, and anyone can relate to that, whatever their heritage. So I think it's this kind of pressure, I suppose, that comes down from whoever your parents are to be a certain person, and how do you negotiate that with your own identity, I suppose, isn't it?
And the patriotism that came through really strongly in the other conversations. All seems very closely tied in some of these stories.
I mean, do you want to say anything about that, Adam? Or
I was going to say, drop my mic. I think pride's a really interesting one, because I've kind of spoken to a friend of mine, discovered he was a 16th Romanian. I think that's right. Was it his great? I can't remember. But and then suddenly he's eating Romanian food and he's learning Romanian stuff, and he's kind of really embraced this culture he kind of knew, and heritage he knew nothing apart of. And I think there's a really interesting thing of what pride means for some people, because for some it's that overwhelming pressure of, actually I'm expected to feel this. But now I think generally as a society, it's almost like we're seeing that my friend's quite an extreme example, but I kind of feel generally, I think a lot of people are kind of taking on, they're actually more prouder of their heritage. And maybe that's a societal thing. Maybe that's, the way the world's changing. But I think a lot of people now are a lot more receptive and a lot more embracing of.
Adam, what about you personally? Where do you sit on all of this?
Who do you support, Adam?
Who do you support? Yeah.
I'm like, which scene does? I'm kind of. I think it's something you should find naturally. That's a proper politician's answer, I know, but I think that it's like I know people who were born in Poland, let's say, and have come over when they were 3 or 4 and have completely denounced it. They've denounced the heritage, and I know people, like I say, who have like the 2nd, 3rd generation, whatever, and they've fully embraced it. And I think you find it natural. And again, it's that thing, of no judgment. That I think if it's been shown to you and you are aware of it and you want to embrace it, fantastic. But in a way, I don't feel there should be that coercion at the same time. Again, it's like human nature, isn't it? I think it's completely down to the person and what they want. And I genuinely think there should be no judgment either way.
Yeah, I mean, I get the feeling from your monologue that it's a kind. It seemed like it's a journey. It's a journey where you can go to all of those places. But yeah, Margot.
I wanted to just add that this kind of pride. I think what I'm also interested in is investigating the kind of toxic pride and toxic patriotism.
Yeah.
And that actually sometimes it's not so clear cut, because there's a whole rise of Eastern European, across the Eastern European countries, but certainly in Poland, of this newly found patriotism, or maybe there's something that's been kind of suppressed for all this time by the sheer fact of opening up to the West and kind of like Western ways of doing. And I think there is actually a real cultural clash nowadays between this kind of like, hey man, just do what you want, and no, we have to preserve our history. And sometimes what happens is you get guys wearing this kind of like tight Polish patriotic t-shirts actually protecting the country, and you've got the kind of like Polish equivalent of Guardian-leaning Poles who come to the UK who are like, yeah, man, I just live in East London. I'm just really cool. I'm just an artist here. It's like, I don't want to get involved in politics. It's all wrong. So I'm interested whether that. Thank you, Greg, for showing what I mean. This is a Polish crest.
Your pride there. You've got there. So that's
Yeah, but I think toxic pride and toxic patriotism as a means of survival and continuation of Polish heritage interests me a lot.
What's a toxic element? I think, could you be more explicit on what the toxic elements of that pride is?
I mean, it can sometimes be kind of loaded with chauvinism. It can be loaded with this kind of arrogance, this kind of maybe Brits have betrayed us during the war. You know what it's like, all that kind of rhetoric, which is not really entering into dialogue. It's more like a set of learned, or absorbed behaviors which go unchallenged. And I think the problem is that if, say, a Polish guy who works on the construction side maybe doesn't speak good English, then there is no chance that they can engage in the kind of debate of the British values and Polish values. Like what, because I think perhaps there are some differences.
So is it a bit uncritical, really? They just kind of take it.
Yeah, and they
does that conversation happen on the building site? We need to ask Kamil, really.
Yeah.
Kane, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I guess it's sort of just leading on from Margot's comments about sort of toxic pride, and whether that is sort of, whether by toxic pride we mean sort of reductive pride as well.
What do you mean by reductive pride?
A kind of definition of a culture and a place that sort of creates an identity that doesn't include quite a lot of people. I mean, say for example, that there's the sort of like right-wing version of pride, the same thing that we have in the UK of like Polishness and Britishness that exclude certain people. So for example, it's an interesting thing because like my family on my mum's side's from Eastern Europe, but we have a sort of similar thing where I really don't know much about my family's heritage from Eastern Europe, because that was never shared with us because we were Jewish. It was about assimilating into the UK, and those stories were never really passed down.
Interesting. So it's like what you're proud of as well, I suppose. And when you move countries, how does that change? This is a really interesting conversation, but I want to get more voices involved in this. So if anyone else you know, it can be slightly to the left. It doesn't have to be like the most, you know, insightful comment, but let's just hear what people have got to say. And let's spread this out. And Jessica, you've got your hand up again. I'm going to come to you, but I know because you've spoken already, I want to also hear from other people too. So Jessica, what were you saying?
Go to someone else. Come to me later.
No, I'm going to you because no one else has got their hand up. So yeah.
I found it really interesting as I'm born in Yorkshire. I believe I'm English. I was brought up here, very working class, very West Yorkshire, and my life, the kind of wars that I've fought, the soldier that I've been in my life, I've always thought and assumed and been told it's because I'm working class that I'm strong. And that's always been kind of reiterated to me repeatedly. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, when I really properly started looking into my Polish heritage, I was like, I ain't strong because I'm working class. I'm fucking strong because I'm Polish. Like, that's why I'm strong. And it really changed it for me, because especially I had such a dilemma with, there's so many other working class people who've had more poverty than I have. You know, I wasn't a food bank child. And I found it really weird, and it just changed how I thought about it, just from what my aunties and uncles and grandparents had been through in Poland. I'm now, it's changed it in my head of why I'm so strong and why I've been able to fight the wars I fought. That's all I was going to say.
Okay, so it's almost like where you're coming from, you know, but I guess you're still fighting the same fight and the same struggles.
It's changed because I'm from Yorkshire, I'm from Castleford.
Yeah.
But that's changed now. Like, my strength is from elsewhere, generationally, like hereditary in my blood. That strength is from elsewhere.
I'm just sorry to go into this a little bit. I'm just kind of interested in this. Is that adding to it? Is it taking away from the working class identity? How do the two identities sit with each other?
They still sit quite separately, I think. And I think because my mum married an English man, my surname's been an English name, but all my cousins had a Polish surname. So I find it very interesting because we don't see my dad, so we're all changing our name this year to the original, my mum's maiden name. But I'm interested in how that would have been a very different childhood for me if I had the Polish surname, which I didn't. So I heard a lot of direct racism in front of me around Polish people, and then they'd remember, oh shit, Cheska's mum's Polish, you know, or they wouldn't know. And I think they sit separately, but they're as strong as each other. I don't think one takes over the other.
I think the question of a kind of working class or class system, I think it's an interesting one, and definitely something that I have been thinking about in this thing, but also the kind of the Yorkshire identity.
It's strong.
And I know, Greg, you anyway, maybe you can tell because you've got your hand up, but
Greg?
Is it my turn now?
Yeah,
I believe so, yes.
Mike, you mentioned the sense of humor, and I actually recently finished my thesis, my master's, and I was actually researching the differences, among other subjects, the differences between British humor and, let's say, Polish humor. And it's different. And when you find the definition of British humor, the famous British humor, you have this very interesting definition that it comes from the hundreds of years of stability, of political stability, that UK didn't suffer that much. I mean, UK, Britain, England didn't suffer that much like, let's say, Eastern Europe. So in UK, you can easily joke about historical figures. You can joke about the Queen. You can just, in Poland, or probably in Ukraine, you're probably not, because the history is much more traumatic. And it's like quite a significant difference in sense of humor and approaching the history, and also the pride. It comes, maybe also is connected to the pride. Yeah, and identity, national identity.
I mean, are there things that British people feel they can't joke about?
I don't know. I think they can joke. Another definition of British humor, they just take a piece of everything. They just can, anything, as long as they're not dead.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's quite a broad palette, basically, for British humor.
Yeah. I kind of wonder, is there anything to anyone who's got the Ukrainian link? Are there any things in the Ukrainian history, heritage, language, whatever identity that you just, that you just can't, you can't turn it into a joke? Is it okay to kind of talk about, kind of your country's history in a light way? Is it even possible, precisely for the reasons that you said, Greg, because the countries have, the countries have been through so much turmoil and just real kind of, they're just really, very brutal times. And the independence, the question of independence, is a real question, I think, in Poland, even now, even though we have our independence and have had for a while. And I think independence is a big thing in the Ukrainian culture and heritage as well. And I wonder whether that always needs to be talked about in a kind of
reverent way
with pathos, or can you actually tell it lightly to involve others? I don't know. Just thoughts.
Some thoughts out there, maybe for further research. Have you got a hand up there, Wiesia?
Yeah, I'll just come in on the independence bit. As most of you probably aware, it is coming up to 30 years since Ukraine was declared independent, but Russia still insists on having a hold on Ukraine, so we don't feel fully independent. Poland has managed to move on, managed to join the EU and much more financially stable, whereas Ukraine is still struggling to this day. We talk a lot about the war in Syria, but people have forgotten that there is still a war going on in Ukraine, and it's Putin's insistence that he wants a hold on Ukraine. I mean, I was born in Yorkshire, and I'm proud to say I'm Ukrainian. I could never say that I'm English. I've sort of lived in the UK all my life, as my parents were born in Ukraine, but I wouldn't say it was Ukrainian heritage was indoctrinated into me. I didn't, there were times when it was a bind, having to do everything Ukrainian. But at the end of the day, I'm proud of it and I enjoyed doing it. And I'm glad that my parents did bring us up with everything Ukrainian. But it is hard that people still aren't fully aware of Ukraine's history, because it's not an easy history. I mean, people here, we've talked about Holodomor, but it's only in recent years that has become openly talked about. And people to this day still will not acknowledge that it was a genocide caused by, brought on by Stalin. So there is a lot in Ukrainian history that people don't know about, but it's hard to talk about because you have to go right back to the basics, because people they weren't taught it at school.
I mean, when it comes to your family and people within the Ukrainian community, and I'm just thinking of the thing, the character in Who Do I Support, that is kind of half Ukrainian, but very much with an English identity. Can you relate to those kind of characters, young people?
Definitely. I mean, my children, I have 4 children, and all of them support Ukraine right to the bitter end. And we've all been to the Ukrainian football match. I've sort of been to the games. I missed the one in Glasgow because I had babysitting duties, but 2 of my sons and my husband were there. We went to the Euros in Ukraine and in France. We've seen a lot of the international games, but yet my daughter, who's married to an English guy, they had the split loyalties, where my daughter Christina was supporting Ukraine, and her husband Ewan was supporting England, and it was their kids then. So they have a daughter who's nearly 4, and it was sort of Ukraina on you know, on one hand, and football's coming home on the other, and it is difficult. But you've got to meet halfway sometime, you know.
No, because I'm just thinking that generation, they're very young now, but will they grow up understanding this history and understanding, you know, the struggle of Ukraine to have its independence and all of this very deep and tragic in some eras history? Will they get into it?
What I'm finding increasingly, because I'm sort of the chair of the Association of Ukrainian sort of Bradford branch, and I do sort of occasionally get emails from people who are trying to trace family members who they lost track, or their parents didn't bring them up the way I was brought up, sort of embracing everything Ukrainian, and they want to know. They've suddenly realised, hang on, there's another part of me here. Yeah. I'm interested. What happened? And I think people will. With the next generations, it is always harder as generations move on, because we diversify. You know, and you get more mixed marriages. It is very hard to sort of say you are Ukrainian through and through, because at the end of the day, they're not. Once they've got mixed marriages, they've got to try and share both, and you've only got so much available time. But I think there will always be an interest in the history.
I'm very conscious that we're kind of running over the time, because the conversation is so good and we overrun with monologues, but I kind of wanted to bring in the actors who kind of perform the monologues, particularly in the first half, and how has it been for you? I mean, how working on these pieces kind of were for you? Was there anything in there that you were able to relate to, or anything that just any kind of thoughts to Sarah and Reece? Because I know that Amy, who did their piece about dances, she had to go, but yeah. So yeah, Reece or Sarah, if you could let us know like how it's been for you to kind of
embrace these, embody the characters, yeah.
I found it really quite emotional, actually, because my person is real, and Adam sent me the photos over, so I immediately felt something for this lady, and it was absolutely crucial that her story be told. And you know, she's such a, I want to say, cacophony really of, you know, different ideas, and like we all are, I guess, but she was just so multifaceted, and trying to get that over in such a short time. I think Adam did a really amazing job in writing that. The other thing is that every city seems to have a character like that from every particular generation. And I remember a guy who used to sing in Leeds Market, and there's a photo of him in Leeds City Varieties, and he used to sing for various charities, and he just sing all the time. He was called Danny, I think, and this is a similar character, and I think it's so important for cities to remember these individuals, because they were absolute stalwarts. People will remember them, you know, and even if they just knew the first name, like Polish Anna, they do remember, and they'll remember bits that, you know, the snippets that they remember from their own history with that person. So yeah, I just felt it was really important that Anila's story was told. And it was a pleasure to take part in it.
I mean, that's a really good point. And, you know, in a way, you've got huge personalities there, and can you actually tell the history of a city through personalities like this that are, you know, they're not, in some senses, in a sort of official sense, they're kind of on the fringe, but they are a touch point for a character of a city. So there's an interesting thing there for sure. Reece, how was it to embody this character in a way? It's a more topical rather than historical sort of feel in your piece, but how did it feel to actually take on this character?
Interesting, because I don't like football, so I just had to, the only guy, and I just had to. I mean, it's easy to imagine though. Like my parents, my mum's like the biggest football fan I know, and she's had to go to the opposite side of certain teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's just, I find the general, people swear on their general heritage, I find intriguing a lot of the time. Because I wouldn't only ever say that I'm English and wouldn't say anything else ever. I never have said anything else to anyone else. But yeah, and so it's always really interesting to hear from multiple people about how they feel, how they might feel this character, how he might have felt at the time, and actual conflict that people can have around what they are and how they feel. And I just find it intriguing. Just stuff like, even like what Cheska said earlier on of how she's suddenly were just like, oh, actually, I am Polish, and this is an actual big part of who I am, and this is actually very much what has driven a big portion of my life. And it's like that. Like I'm just having a good time hearing how everybody feels right now, basically, of how they identify as, well, kind of like how the character I read, basically the two things or the two aspects, and how they integrate, and how they identify between the two, and when the one comes into play over the other one. And
it's kind of like a seesaw, really, isn't it? It's a seesaw. In your pieces, it's like one then the other, and then you're kind of I don't know,
always oscillating. But I think, but it's interesting because Nicholas, he's gone now, but he said that he said on the chat that he was struck by how the first person performances were often really experiencing identity issues, conflicts in the concrete form of family relationships. So I think, for example, they could be programmed in such a way that they aren't in a cultural identity framework, but a family expectations or character or self-realization framework. And I found that interesting because you mentioned, Reece, also that your mum supports football. I mean, I don't know if she imposes that on you in any kind of way, but I think are we just ready now to kind of move away from the identity politics, the kind of the identity framework, and just portray different characters as people who are part of this society? And they may have Polish, Ukrainian, whatever roots, but is that the most defining characteristic?
It depends on how important it is to people. For example, I'm doing a show with someone. Ironically enough, I'm doing a show with someone right now that is that's family are from the same place that my family are from, and I've been talking to her about that, because I'm not fussed about where my family are from, my grandparents are from much, but
where are they from, out of interest?
She grew up in, and it's a part of her, and she identifies as a part of her, so she wouldn't want to be. She's very much like to make that more known than I would be more inclined to just be like, I'm just from here.
Okay, so that is it's very much in the background for you. And can I ask where that is?
It's Dominica.
Okay, so but for you, that's just a history that is in the past, and it doesn't really inform your identity as such.
Now, similar to what I think some stories said was that I've been around all the stuff. My parents have gone and helped out at the Dominican club in Bradford as well. The family that all have had like parties there and stuff like that. I had to go. My mum took me there for like 3 weeks when I was a kid, and despite all of that, I'm just still not fussed. But then at the same time, I'm at a rehearsal with somebody who clearly grew up in a different kind of community, and it's a big deal to her. And she's like my age, so it's just interesting how it just works that way a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, from the other people on this call, I mean, does anybody else have kind of that relationship with heritage? I mean, are you fussed? Are you fussed to be where you're from, or where you are, or are you, or not that much, or are you kind of here and now?
Yeah, there's a point here from Maria.
Oh, Maria. We just need to unmute you, Maria. Wait. You should have something popping up on your screen to say to unmute.
Right, sorry. What I wanted to say was my parents are both Ukrainian. I was born in Bradford, parents born in Ukraine. I got married to an Englishman who's from up north, and he said to me if we ever had children, he'd wanted to bring them up as Ukrainian. And so when Catherine, my daughter, she's 27 now, she was brought up in the Ukrainian community as well as the English community. And she went to Ukrainian school. She moaned and groaned. And when she finished Ukrainian school and she started teaching in Ukrainian school, she turned around to me, she says, Mum, I am so glad that you brought me into the Ukrainian community. She says, I used to moan about Ukrainian language, she says, but I'm so glad I've done it. And she does the dancing, she teaches dancing, and she does both. And like when we had the football, obviously we had to split. So my husband's obviously going for the English side. Me and Catherine went for the Ukrainian side. No, we had no conflicts or anything. And then when Ukraine obviously lost, we went for the English side. So there we are. And that was us.
Well, it's really great to hear that, hear the stories and hear obviously, some of this writing is really touching on stuff that is out there and, that is kind of, we've got a point here
from Maria,
from other Maria. I think we're going to have to move into final thoughts after this because we are running quite a lot over. So let's get the point from Maria and then we'll just see if there's anyone got any final thoughts. And that'll be it. Maria.
Maria.
Hello?
Yay.
Yay.
Yeah, am I there?
You are? Well, I hope so.
Okay, right. I just wanted to say, expanding on what Maria said, Maria Lee, we teach together at Ukrainian school every Saturday, and I've been there for a long time. I started teaching when my daughter was 3, and she's 38 now, and I never left. So, I've taught so many of the children who are parents themselves now. And the thing was, it was always, oh, we've got to go to school. We'd rather be doing this. We'd rather be doing that. And so many, once they left and actually went to Ukraine or whatever walk of life they've gone into, it's nice to hear they say to me, oh, that's the clock saying it's 7 o'clock, sorry. They said to me, do you know, it's so rewarding to have gone to a school because, we do use the language now, because when you're at school, they always complained. Of course, it was taking up the Saturday and the parents sent them more than anything. They had to go because, your mum and dad said, you go to school, you can't do anything else. But once they were, learning the language, and it's benefited them sort of, in their future. And it's the nicest thing to hear when they say, we're really glad we went and you taught us, and, together with our parents, we can continue that hopefully with our children as well.
Yeah, so in a way, it's important to push, to go through the barrier. I think that's the point. That's what I'm getting. That you've got to go through that. There's going to be some initial resistance, but you've got to be persistent and show the kind of value of learning that language or understanding the culture. Margot.
I've just got a question to people who identify British. I mean, is there much of a kind of British pride left beyond football, or is football the replacement of British pride? Okay, so this one goes out. So this goes out to the minority of the audience that's got the British. Reece doesn't like football. We've heard that. But any other? How does British or English pride go down? I'm going to come to you, Kane. But we are really wanting to go into final thoughts. We've heard the cuckoo clock saying it's 7 o'clock. That means we're half an hour over. It was a good kind of background music. But I would really nothing against you, Kane, whatsoever. But people who haven't spoken yet, like, remember, this is an R&D where we want to hear from you what you made of this. I mean, is it, oh great, never write anything ever again, this is irrelevant, whatever. Like, just tell us what you think, because both Adam and myself, we're exploring all of these themes, but you can be critical, you can be whatever you want, but all you say has got a huge value. So please do say, and yeah. And if somebody wants to take on my question, obviously go as
Okay,
well. We can start picking up people.
Is there anyone out there? There's a point here from Tim. Tim, in you come.
Who, me?
Oh no, Tim.
Yeah. Tim A. But Tim, the other Tim, if you've got Tim S, if you want to chime in first, now that you're on.
Well, I don't have any particular pride in being British or English. You know, I'm just pleased I've got one of those passports that will take me more or less wherever I want to go. You know, it's a great privilege, but I think I don't get overexcited about being British or English. I'd rather just be, you know, a person really.
In terms of your identity, is there a pride that you've got in something else that's not about the country? Does the pride go, or they're just that pride isn't a thing for you?
Wow. Oh, that's a big question. Well, I'm quite proud that I've been to lots of different places and met a lot of different people doing the job that I do. I mean, I just enjoy traveling and photographing lots of different communities, really. And I'm kind of proud of the connections that I've had with the Ukrainian community and many others in Bradford over the years, I guess.
But I guess the pride is more about the work that you do then, and yeah, okay. Let me come to the other Tim.
I can unmute you, Tim, but you have to make the final.
There we go.
Final step.
You're still muted.
You're still muted.
Turn yourself up somehow, if you can. Is this working? Come on. No, still got nothing.
Keep going, keep trying.
Yeah, unless Tim Smith wants to speak for Tim Aldcroft.
Can I just point out to those people that I know in this forum, and there's a few of you, I'm actually nearly 2 hours late because I actually went to the Ukrainian club at 5 o'clock today because I thought this was a live event. So anyway, that's my excuse for being so very, very late.
Okay, we've got, while Tim fiddles, the other Tim fiddles with his settings, Michael, you've got a point.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the monologues. It's wonderful to hear them. My thought on identity is that, from my own experience, is we become very aware of our identity when we travel abroad, because it's only then that it's actually shown into a kind of relief and a contrast with what we see around us. Now, I've got a Celtic parents, Irish, but I've got an Anglo-Saxon mind that I only become aware of when I'm saying in places like Kuwait or the Ukraine. And it's a different way of thinking. It's a different way of analysing. And I absolutely love going to these far-flung countries to become aware of what I've got, but also to contribute and to listen to other people and what they've got, and through that dialogue and that communication, have a wonderful project that we're working on, learn from each other, and come away really enriched, having become aware of each other's culture, given something, and taken something.
So in a way, you're saying the it's easier to find out about being British the further you go away from Britain.
That's exactly it, Mikey. I mean, as a British person, I'm not aware of that. It's not in my everyday dialogue or thought process when I'm walking around London, because it's so familiar. But if I'm in the Ukraine, it's very, very much in my forethoughts. Because people want to hear your story when you're abroad.
Okay, we're getting some round of applauses from various people. I feel like we need to get, I'm going to amplify that. I feel like we do need to get now final thoughts, because we are going over. We should have said at the beginning, actually, if you can set your phones and your cuckoo clocks to silent before we did this session, that would be good. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's just get final thoughts. This is open to everyone, and including you, Michael. You're on at the moment, but has anyone got a final thought?
Maybe we can try Tim once again.
Tim, can we go to you? I can see Arisia, you got your hand up as well. If we can't go to, let's go to Arisia first, and then we'll do some very quick final thoughts here. Arisia. Just need to unmute yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Just don't want to be pedantic, but Michael said the Ukraine. He said it a couple of times, and I'm sorry, but that really does get me back up. BBC are notorious for doing it. It is not the Ukraine. It's Ukraine. It's an independent country.
Okay.
And we talked about Ukrainian independence. So please, any of you that are listening, don't refer to it as the Ukraine. Thank you.
Okay, we learn something all the time, so thanks for that, and sorry for any offence. Cheska, final thought?
Just in reply to Margot about the R&D, with my honest opinion, it'd be more helpful for me to understand what your initial thoughts are of it moving forward, so I can comment on that. Obviously, I've seen digital monologues, so it'd be good to know if you have any thoughts of what you're doing, so I can advise or.
Okay.
I think that's good. I mean, we originally wanted to, and I'm so sorry, Tim, that you went to the actual Ukrainian club. It's just like the technology failed us. But I mean, ideally, we would be doing these in a space somewhere. The Ukrainian club was the number one choice in this instance. But in terms of going forward, me and Adam are going to kind of regroup and have a chat about how to kind of conclude this leg of the project. It is an R&D. We will, we've learned loads, but I think just staying in touch and like having conversation about what the next steps could look like, Cheska, would be really great, and particularly that you've got this vast experience.
I think I'd be interested in, because I can't imagine, obviously I've not seen it live, but they're very individual monologues. There's no link, there's nothing. It's very a brand new story, a brand new country, it felt quite disjointed, to be honest.
So how do you link these together? That might be an interesting challenge.
I'd be quite interested in that, to have even like a link of something so simple as a hat or a piece of fabric or a food from back in the day or something, because otherwise it was.
Or a football, maybe?
Yeah, football, yeah, I think that's a good one.
I'm not that fond of football, but yeah, like something, because otherwise it's a brand new breath, it's a brand new life I've got to believe in and accept.
Okay, so how do we link these things together? How do we build it into more of a structure, I suppose, is the question. Any other final thoughts while we're there? And this, obviously, there's an ongoing conversation to be had, before the next time Adam and Margot pop up. Kane, final thought?
Can I ask a final question? I mean, I love the monologues, but which is sort of just leads on from Francesca's question of just, I guess it would be great to understand, like, regardless of what the next steps are, of just like what both Adam and Margot, like what have you taken away from it, or like what will you sort of carry forward from it into your next work, or yeah.
Do you want to answer that question? I mean, it's a final thoughts time, so we could just leave it hanging.
Completely gloss over that. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's hard to tell because Adam and I will have a conversation, because it is to some extent a collaborative project. It's quite hard to kind of know what's next. I think Adam is a writer in his own right, and I write and perform as well. So we will probably be doing something, whether this is, whether next thing is a collection of monologues that are linked together, or are they independent pieces, or is it an expansion of one of the stories, or is it Adam and I, who never actually met in real life, never talk to each other again? We don't know that. Hopefully not the latter, but yeah, it's hard to know. But I think, I don't know from your side, Adam, but I think lots of seeds have been planted, certainly for me, for this research. So I'm keen to kind of continue developing work and conversations within Bradford.
So definitely the seeds have been planted. How they're going to grow, it remains a question. They're just little, all the saplings all look the same, I suppose. Adam, have you got a final thought?
Just to reiterate what Margot said, I think kind of, crudely speak, I think if we're being honest, Margot, everything that could have gone wrong with this has gone wrong in a sense, and Arisi and everyone from the club will know. And I think I'm really proud that it's been a real privilege to work with Margot and to work with the communities and manage to get, some stories up there. And I think we've kind of hopefully, like you say, Margot, planted some seeds, and it'd be lovely to do something in person one day. So I think that's the aim. 2024 we can aim for something, but we're hoping that that'd be the dream, to do something maybe site specific that really embraces like a lot of stories. But we'll have to say, like, we're like we said, the seeds have been planted, definitely. And I think it's good because I think the people who we've spoken to, whether it's Bradford Council or Margot, you did like the Heritage Days things. It seems this is kind of a thing where we've spoken to people and they've kind of been like, well, actually, why haven't we been doing this before? And I think that's a great thing that's come out of this. People are actually, I think for one of the first times, actually considering these stories and their importance, not just now, but throughout the past, century, the relevance they've always had. So I think that's really exciting to take from it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like it's the start of a very big project, and it's opened up a box where there's so many different elements that are in there to explore. Any final, super final thoughts? Or is it Cheska?
Sorry, you hate hearing from me. I've felt like 4 times now.
Never.
And I can tell.
Never.
I was just going to say to Margot and Adam, which I can continue in a private conversation, my show, My Old Man, which is based again on me and my granddad, who's Polish, is coming to Bradford this November. So there's potential there for you guys to do something pre-show. Maybe we could work together. I could support you with that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any details, Cheska, about that show that you could put into the Zoom chat, maybe you already have, but it'd be good to, while we've got a bit of an audience here, to try and publicize that a little bit, but also potential for collaboration. So yeah, I think it is a burgeoning field, and it's something I think we all really need to explore.
Yeah,
for sure.
Thank you. And I think it would be really great to have a chat and see what else can happen in Bradford, because obviously I'm not based there, but the more I go, for all sorts of reasons, it'll be really great to connect. And I also Greg had to go, but I really wanted to shout him out and just drop in the chat just his Facebook page. He's a performer, like he mentioned, and he does make stuff which I wouldn't necessarily say is representative of kind of like nice, neat, clean Polish patriotism or whatever, but I really do enjoy his work because I think it's very, very different. He's got a very interesting kind of non-stereotypical approach to his Polish heritage. So and he's quite provocative, so please check out his work, and I think it'll be really great to get you following and thinking about all the different myriad ways of Polish heritage can be represented as well. Anyway, we've been here for so long now. Everybody, it's Sunday night, we have lives to lead.
Okay, yeah, so I think it's time to... is this appropriate music to say goodbye on? I just pushed a button of a track. So we're going to just play out, this is the outro music. So we just say thanks to everyone involved, thanks to our actors, our writers, and all the people that have actually contributed to this this body of research, and all the people that have that have got involved in all of the sessions as well. And it's been it really has been an eye-opener. I think we've all learned a lot about our own identities, whether they've got that Polish or Ukrainian ancestry or not. I think there's so many things that from wherever you're from, you could...
For sure.
Yeah, okay, so I'm just going to hit the round of applause and call it a day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you everybody for joining tonight, and apologies once again for change of plans, but have a great rest of COVID. I hope you don't get it. I hope the theatre goes on as it should. And yeah, fantastic. Thank you so much.
May the show go on. Thank you everybody.
Really appreciate it. Take care.
Bye everyone.
Bye.